gonna have to go into your trunk where the spare tire is and grab this tool. And if your vehicle has wheel locks, take the wheel lock key out. Now take these caps off. You can use that hook. Just go in there, slide them off. And you can find the wheel lock, use the key, and use this 17mm socket. Take that one off first. And take the other ones off as well. When you get to the last one, because they're not studs, they're lug studs, make sure you hold the wheel on. Take the last one out, and just grab the wheel, slide it off. Take this spring off. You can use some pliers or some needle nose, and just grab it. Slide that off. Take these caps off. You can use a pick or a screwdriver. Just slide those off. There's two of them. Now use a 7mm hex socket and take those two pins out. To loosen up the caliper a little bit, just take a straight blade screwdriver and go between the rotor and the caliper and just compress the piston slightly. Just makes it a little easier. You can slide it off, just like that. Now before we hang the caliper with a hook, just take the brake pad off, just grab it and slide it out, just like that. You can use a hook and attach it to the coil spring. Just make sure there's no tension on the brake hose. Take the other brake pad off. Take these two bolts out for the caliper bracket. Use a 21mm socket. And slide the bracket out. Now take this screw out, use a T30 socket. And grab the rotor, slide it off. If it's stuck on there, you can just hit it with a hammer all around the outside edges. Take a wire brush and just clean up any corrosion or rust buildup on the hub surface. This one looks pretty clean. Take a little bit of anti-seize, give it a nice thin coat. Before we install the rotor, just take some brake parts cleaner. Just clean the back side of the rotor. Use a rag, just wipe it off. Now install the rotor. Just line up this hole with the threaded hole and put that screw in. And just snug it up, not too tight, just snug. And just use some brake parts cleaner and clean this side as well. Take the bracket and a wire brush and just clean up any corrosion. Get some of the rust out of here. Wherever the pads are gonna slide. Do the same on this side. And take a thin coat of brake caliper grease and just give it a thin coat. Now slide the bracket over the rotor and put the bolts back in. And torque these bolts to 144 foot-pounds. Now take the caliper off the hanger and flip this over. You can take one of the old brake pads, slide it there. We need to compress the caliper, so use a caliper compressing tool. Get that lined up. And just go nice and slow and compress the piston. This is going to push the brake fluid through the brake hoses back up into the master cylinder reservoir. Just go nice and slow. All right. Now take on the passenger side, it does not have the brake sensor. That one's on the driver's side on this vehicle, so we'll take the pad without the sensor in it with the clips and slide it into the piston. Just like that. Take the other brake pad, it's going to slide on right there. And slide the caliper over the rotor. Then over the brake pads. And we'll take the caliper pins and just clean these up. Use some brake parts cleaner. And just take a little brake caliper grease. And grease them up and install them back into the caliper. Get those started. And torque these to 22 foot-pounds. And put the caps back on. I'll reinstall this spring clip. You can use some pliers, get it started on one side, push it in, and just slide this in position here. And give it a little tap, and it's lined up. Before I put the wheel up, I'll take one of the lug studs and a socket and just make sure you have it close. Get the wheel lined up. Hold it on and get the lug stud started. And you can put the other ones in. Put the key back in. And we're going to torque these lug bolts to 89 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. Take the key out. For the caps, the one that is round like that and not hex like that, that one's going to go over the lock, and the rest will go over the other lug bolts. Make sure you put the wheel lock key away and that hook. And make sure you pump the brake pedal nice and slow. There will be an air gap between the brake pads and the caliper piston. And once it feels good, you should be all set. And it's kind of hard to see, but look down here next to the air intake and just double check the brake fluid level. You can just wiggle that a little bit and just make sure it's up to where the max line is.